We'll go to Ron next, who says no, he doesn't trust the media. Ron calling from San Clemente, California. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks so much for taking my call. I have a short rant on the media, and it starts off like this. First of all, our illiteracy in this country is so disturbing that it just sometimes just shakes your imagination. People look it up, it's 21% of our population of the United States are illiterate. That means functionally illiterate. They can't read or write, and these people are voting. Then you have 54% of the population of the United States that have under a sixth grade education, and these people are voting. Okay, now let's move on to the next step. People have no fundamental understanding of the Constitution of our United States. They can't tell you about the 14th Amendment or the 19th Amendment or the 18th Amendment and the 21st Amendment and its relationship to our country. They should Google it. They should Bing it. They should do something, but they don't, okay? Now, finally, let's talk about reading. No one reads in this country anymore. Our newspapers are evaporating in front of our very eyes. You know, I told you, when I grew up, we went to college. First thing I did was start reading Kurt Vonnegut. And I read 3 important novels. One was called Player Piano. Second one was called Sirens of Titan. The third one was called Cat's Cradle. It tells you everything you'll ever want to know about what's going on in our country today.
So, Ron, quickly on your point about local, you're right. Local newspapers are disappearing, but one could also argue that there are all sorts of other online sites now where people can read stories and reporting of all kind. Whether you trust that reporting is another thing. I'll look at a poll later on about a survey in terms of local newspapers. But you're right about that. But couldn't it be fairly said that there are plenty of online outlets, social media outlets, et cetera, that are infilling for some of what's lost by local papers going away?
Well, let me put it in this context. Sports, okay? I'm a sports fan. And you know what? I like to read Bill Plaschke. I like reading him from cover to cover. Try to read that online. Try to read that on a 23-inch computer monitor. It's ridiculous. It's time-consuming. I want that tactile feel of the newspaper. I want to be able to flip that page over when I get tired of reading three words or 10 words or 2 paragraphs and say, no, that's not right. And I go to the next page. When you do that online, it's totally a different feel for it, and you don't get the understanding of what's going on.
I would say I used to have more trust in the media when I was younger, but that trust has been severely damaged or maybe irreparably destroyed with how the media covered COVID. They took a particular ideological narrative, and they never wavered regardless of the facts that kept coming out. The best example is in, I think, around March or April of 2020, the New York Times ran a very scary article about COVID and children and Kawasaki disease. And that one article led everybody to panic and close the schools for 2 years. And then they would not report for a long time about the damage that was causing to children and different populations. For a long time, they would not discuss the very mixed evidence about masking and COVID. They would not discuss the questions about COVID's origin. It wasn't fashionable. It was verboten. You could not discuss it. And it was only when they were faced with real evidence that they could not ignore that they barely would cover it on page 17 of the New York Times rather than page 1. And so to my mind, the media really did the public a horrible disservice with its terrible COVID reporting, its biased COVID reporting that continues to this day. They still will not really report on certain aspects of COVID that draw real questions about the public.
I don't say that I'm unsure about the news more than skeptical about all news, from the local all the way up through the big ones. And I blame what that Hayward guy was just talking about. They made them into profit centers. That's the first thing that they did to screw up the news. And the second thing is now they're not profit centers. They're pouring money in and losing money just to get a political view out. So you have it from both ways that they're screwing up the news. And another thing I have is about you guys, C-SPAN, and you say you're down, what, 14%? And I got a pretty good idea why you're that low and what you can do to fix that. If you want to hear I wish you'd let me talk for a minute.
You've got the floor,
30 days.
Ray. You've got the floor. We're talking about media, so give us your thoughts briefly.
Here you go. First, when you bring on someone from the right or the left, you only bring them on. They get to spew out their view all the time with nobody to stop them. I can call and I can ask a question and say, oh, you're lying about this. But then you hang up on me and this guy gets to talk again. All he wants about what I said and what I didn't say. I say that you have to have both sides when you do these interviews, like when you have Gorka on. You got to have somebody opposite him or a few other people like that, or from the right too, and from the left. You got to have both views there so that people can correct them. You guys, you're not allowed, or you won't correct people when they're saying the wrong things. And so you got to have somebody there to fight back, or you got to let people who are on the phone have the time to question them and go back and forth in a conversation, not just ask a question or make a statement and then hang up on them and let the guy talk all he wants. So that's my biggest thing about what you guys do and how you do it. And I think that's part of the reason why you're not trusted, because you let people get on there and lie and do not try to stop them at all.
Well, those are two very good points. We appreciate the input on that, and take it under consideration. Obviously, as much as possible, we do try to, where we can, bring on a panel of people of opposite sides. It's not always possible. It's for the same reason, not always possible to fact check and contest what people have to say real time on this program. Our goal in this program is to hear as many calls as we can. The role of the host here is to be that facilitator of the conversation. But you're right. There's some level of pushing back on people that perhaps could be introduced. But I appreciate the input.
I would like to see Washington Journal, instead of this anecdotal information gathering, actually take the 5 biggest stories of the last, say, 10 years and just compare all of the major news sites, who got it right and who got it wrong. I mean, we keep going on about, the 51 officials that lied, and the laptop from hell, and how that was covered up. Who got that right and who got that wrong? We don't really talk about the facts. And we know what the facts are. We know how many times the media got things wrong, and we know who got it wrong. That's about it.
I'm just trying to say, when you look at most of the Democrat-run cities and how most news agencies, portray them, it's just a lie. I mean, why would you have a sanctuary city stealing the American taxpayer money and then giving it and funding the border jumpers? You don't help the people that pay the taxes in your own state. I mean, it's Democrat run. Just look at Democrat cities. They're the ones falling apart. How can you trust news agencies when they lie? Look at all the ones that said Russian collusion. For 3 years, they lied.
So in terms of big cities, your view that the news outlets in those cities don't tell the truth about what's happening in their city, or your view that national media doesn't tell the truth about what's happening in American cities?
No, I'd say probably 80 to 90% of the news agencies, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, they just lie. They just straight out give their opinion, like Rachel Maddow. They just lie straight out.